Hi guys, it's Laura from Foodology Geek. I just wanted to come back and show you guys a quick video on how I get started when I make templates. So I did a video the other day on how to build video pins, and I talked about how I use templates, or I kind of reuse the same pin over and over again so I don't have to build every pin from scratch. So I wanted to show you guys how to set that up in Photoshop, just so that you have something. Once you have a template, it literally takes you like a minute to build new pins. So the one thing you do, you're going to start at Photoshop and hit Create New. And you can use this method for your Facebook posts to build graphics when you're doing those. You can use them for Instagram. You can use them for any social media that you want. So once you get the template size down, all you have to do is just reuse it over and over again. So the common size that I use for my Instagram posts is 800 by 14 or 800 by 1200 or 800 by 14 pixels. The 1400 pixels is a little bit long. So I'm going to show you the first one just with the 800 by 1200 size. So you set it up over here in the preset details, and you want to make sure that it's portrait orientation, that the units you have selected are pixels, and it's 800 width by 1200 height. And then you can choose what style of background you want to use depending on what color your logo is. You might want to choose either white or black. Most of the time I use a white logo, so it doesn't show up in the background. It would probably be easier to show up if I used a black background. So actually I'm going to go ahead and try that. And then you hit create. And then you end up with a canvas. And the nice thing about Photoshop is that the canvas ends up being a mask. So anything that you bring in will be perfectly sized to fit into this canvas. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and start by bringing my photo in first. So whatever photo I want to add into my pin, I'm going to go File and Place Embedded. And then I'm going to search for a photo. And so I'm going to go ahead and pick, this long portrait size of my hazelnut chocolate chip cookies. And then I'm going to resize it to fit into my screen. And I'll just go ahead and pull this out, and notice that whatever's around the edges doesn't show up. And once you have it placed, you're going to hit this check mark box. And the nice thing about Photoshop is that everything that you do, it works in layers. And so you'll see everything over here in your layers panel. I like to view You're able to customize your workspace in Photoshop. So I like to have my layers visible, and I also like to have my libraries visible. And my libraries are where I have all of my brand colors, brand fonts, certain graphics that I use typically while I'm working, because it makes it easy just to kind of drag and drop things in. So then the next thing I'm going to do is start stylizing this pin. And you can do a lot of different things with it. So one of the common things that I do is I will just drop a rectangular box on top of it. And once you have it dropped, you're going to go over here to the Color and Properties tab. And if you want to change the color, you just make sure this is selected, and then you can just change the color to whatever you want. One of the things a lot of people like to do too is they like to do sort of like an opaque sort of style. So, or like a translucent style. This isn't probably the best photograph to view it on, but a lot of people will go ahead and keep your box white. Oh, sorry. If a lot of times if it's not like doing anything, you need to make sure and check the checkbox. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to white. And what you'll see on a lot of pins is going in and then changing the opacity on this. So once I have the color selected, I can change the opacity on my layer by just pulling this over. and then I'll get just sort of a shadow effect. And that will kind of help your text sort of pop just a little bit. And you're going to have to just play around with what photos and stuff you like. I really stick to like a photo like this where I have all this space up here. I'm going to go ahead and stick with a box that's full color. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my text. And a lot of times what will happen is you're going to select the text, the horizontal type tool. You can also do vertical text, so you can write up and down. So I'm just going to click the box in here. And a lot of times the text will be like a really weird size, a really weird layer. I can already see up here, this is where my text populates. The color of my text is purple. I don't want that because it's going to be really difficult for me to see what I'm even typing. And I'm going to go ahead, I can already see I want this text larger. So, and I may even want it larger than that. So I'm going to go ahead and select my text, and then I'm going to start typing. A lot of times I'll mix and match fonts. I have a couple fonts that I use in my brand, so I sometimes I will, I'll start depending on what I'm typing, and I'll have I'll have 2 different fonts just to add interest. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my brand logo in. I have created my brand logo in Adobe Illustrator, and I have it in a few different colors. I created on a transparent background, and I have it in white, I have it in black, I have it in teal, I have it in this purple color, and that way I can drop it on to anything when I'm working. So I'm going to use the file menu, place embedded, and then I'm going to navigate to where my file is. I actually should put this over my logos over in my libraries because it would make it a lot easier. But I just haven't. And like I said, because normally I have my pin and I reuse it over and over again. So normally I don't need to go in and pull this logo very often. So I have my Foodology Geek logos in here. I'm going to look for my Foodology Geek banner in black, and I'm going to drop this in. And notice it's transparent, and so I can, whatever I put it over, it will still see. And so you can kind of put it wherever you want. And so I will alternate between using black and white depending on what the pen is. And so there's a basic pen. It's very, very basic. And so then what I do is I will hit File, Save As, and I'm gonna call this my Hazelnut Chocolate Chip Long Pen. I actually have a folder that I typically save all of my long pens to. Bear with me for a second while I navigate through my... So here's my Foodology Geek long pens. And I'll go ahead and I save everything in here. And I'm going to save it as a Photoshop document first. And the Photoshop document's the one that I'm going to reopen up when I want to use another one. And then what I'll do is once you have this created, in order to use it on social media and in order to drop it in to something like your photo reel on your phone, what you're going to do is go into File again and hit Export. You're going to export as, and I export as a JPEG for my Pinterest pins. And then actually we're going to do this different. We're going to go File, Export. Oh no, that's true. Okay. We're going to export as, I'm going to export as a JPEG. You can also choose, I only want the one size. You can also choose to export multiple sizes if you feel like you need to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and check all these settings. Everything looks good. I want 1x. The canvas size is setting up exactly the way I want it to. And then I'm going to save it to my folder, the same folder. And then I can go ahead and place it on Pinterest. Now, then what happens is I end up having this pin in my library. So then when I go, if I'm starting up Photoshop the next time, or if I want to continue and make another pin, what I can do is I can just go and find that pin in my locations. So I go back to my long pins folder. And I'm going to go ahead and sort this as a list just so you can see. So I end up having my JPEG version and my PSD version. And so what I typically will do is I have a lot of my other pins in here. So whenever I want to go and work on a pin, or I'm building pins for the day, I go in and I find one of my last pins that I did. So like I'll go ahead and do this fish taco one. And then all I really have to do when I edit this is I just have to go in and say I'm going to do a recipe. So I just made some caramel sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save as. I'm going to do caramel sauce in jar. And I'm going to hit save. And I want to save it ahead of time so that I'm not writing over it. And I go up to my select button. I select the photo that's in this pin because I'm swapping it out. And notice here I have my white logo. And then I'm going to just delete it. And then I go up to File, Place Embedded. And then I'm going to go and pick my photos. So I'm going to go into my photos for my caramel sauce. Hopefully I can find this really quickly. So, and I'll go ahead and use this one. I used this in the other video. And so now I have my caramel sauce on here. And with this pen, because it's a long pen, what I might want to do with it is I can easily rearrange all of this stuff. And so I might want to do something like, move this down, move down my text. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. But you can see it's really easy once you have one to just kind of build your other ones. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a second picture here. I know this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm either going to have to crop it or I store all my photos on a server, so sometimes it's a little bit slow. All right. And remember I talked about before, your layers will show up in the order that they are. So I want this layer to be underneath my rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here so that it ends up, actually I want it to be under everything. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it all the way down so that you're just seeing the top. And then I can just take this and pull it down until I get the rectangle exactly where I want it. I'm actually going to pull this over to the side for a sec. For whatever reason, I feel like my text has been really problematic in Photoshop lately, as I'm trying to show you how easy it is. Okay, so then I'm just gonna resize my font. That's the other nice thing that I kind of like about Photoshop, is that the fonts will actually resize. So there you go. Once you have everything saved, again, all you're gonna do is hit File, Export, Export as, export as a JPEG, and export all. And now you have a second pen, and then you can easily go through, and it's just, swapping out your photos, swapping out the text, and it's a really easy process. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and if you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. Thanks.